Everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new, welcome to my channel. Here we go, y'all. We are talking foundations, and we're not necessarily talking only about my favorites of 2024, but we are doing a roundup of every new foundation that I have tried, new to me, may not be new, but new to me foundation that I purchased and tried in the year 2024. I have a total of 22. I am not including my MAC foundations, which would add it up to 25 because I'm doing a separate video altogether on those. So I am breaking this up into 3 videos. I'm gonna be talking about 17 of them, and then the final video will be my top 5. I wrote copious notes about each one of these, and I did a rating system. So the ones that I'm gonna be talking about today are the ones that fell in the last 8 spots of my 22. I used the same sunscreen, the same brush, and the same powder every day, which I will list and link down in the description box below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to my bottom 8 of 2024. Now, take that how you will, but I'm gonna say that I do like all of these except for the bottom 2. So even though they fell in the bottom 8, it doesn't mean I don't like them. It just means that the other ones got rated a little bit higher. Let's start with my least favorite foundation by a landslide that I tried in 2024. And I hate to say this, they did send me this product, but I hope that just proves to everybody that I am not biased because a company sends me products. I either like it or I don't. And I'm sure that this works great on some people. I've seen some rave reviews, but the By Terry Brightening CC foundation was a total miss for me. They actually sent me 3 shades. They sent me 1C, 6W, and then a very, very dark shade, which I gave to a friend of mine that would get use out of it. But I ranked this a 3 out of 10. And here is why. I do have to mix shades. That's not a con. It's just based on what they sent me. So I did mix the 1C and 6W together to make this shade that I used. This has a very strong By Terry rose scent, very strong, probably the strongest of all the scents of any fragrance added foundation that I'm going to talk about today. However, it doesn't linger. When I mixed the colors together on my hand, it seemed like they were not mixing well, and it was even patchy on my hand before I went to apply it. And it made my brush very gunky, for lack of a better term. The product just sat in my brush and made all the bristles stick together, and that was how it all started out, okay? It's not as dewy as I would think upon first application, but as the day wore on, this is what did not work for me. Not only was it patchy to apply, but it looked patchy on my skin. I felt like there were darker areas in my skin, lighter areas in my skin. There were areas that did not have any foundation on it at the end of the day. It was almost gone from my upper lip, part of my chin, and my nose after 5 hours of wear, and this was set with a powder. My forehead around this area looked very, very heavy and had excess foundation that I guess had not been blended out and did not sit well throughout the day. It oxidized probably a shade to a shade and a half darker than it was when I first applied it. Unfortunately, it just did not work for me. I've used By Terry complexion products in the past that did, but for me, this was the bottom of the barrel when it came to the ones that I tried in 2024. Now let's go to number 21. This scored a 4 out of 10. And when I first used this, I actually like it. So I don't know if my skin is doing something different, if because it's been sitting for a few months, the formula is doing something different. But this is the Too Faced Born This Way Healthy Glow SPF 30 Skin Tint. This is in the shade Nude. It claims to be 24-hour wear, vegan, all-day hydration, non-acnogenic. I've never heard acnogenic before. This was very shiny after 2 hours of wear. I mean, very shiny, almost like I had not used a powder at all. However, I did. So touch-ups were required, which were not required with quite a few of the foundations I'm gonna be talking about. It rubbed off considerably on my nose area. It patched off very, very, very much on my forehead, especially right here on the sides, which then in turn made my bronzer look very patchy and very noticeable. I'm talking like almost leopard spot patchy. And it patched off in this area of my cheeks, again, after only a few hours of wear and a touch-up that was required. So because of that, this is in my number 21 spot. It does have a very pretty finish. It is a luminous skin tint. And again, I did really like it. I wore it for probably consistently for over a month after I got it. But for some reason, it's just not working for me as well now, especially as some of the other ones that I'm going to talk about. Let's talk about number 20 on the list. And this one might come as a surprise, but this starts the, I still really like these. It just, for some reason, they got ranked on the bottom. And this is the Dior foundation stick. This came in at 6 out of 10 for me. I was very, very, very harsh on every foundation that I rated because I wanted this to be as fair as possible. So I was very critical. I'm gonna say that right now. This was extremely luminous, or is extremely luminous when first applied. Not always the case for foundation sticks, but it is with this one on my skin. I actually felt the need to set twice in my T-zone. So I set initially with my Chanel powder, and by the end of my makeup application, I was so shiny right there again that I had to go in and set a second time. My liquid highlight that I used on this day lifted the foundation, and I feel like maybe I talked about that in the review that I did of this foundation stick. It was very finicky with some of the SPFs that I used it with, and it would lift on itself. I like to take it straight from the stick, as you saw or seeing in the demo, and apply it that way versus striping it on and blending it out like I can do with some of my other stick foundations. So because of the fact that it is finicky with some of my SPFs, I can only use certain products on top of it. And because I felt like it was so luminous for me that I felt the need to set twice, it got a 6 to 7 out of 10. I put that in my notes, 6 to 7. Still not bad, definitely not my favorite foundation stick of all time, but not bad. Coming in next spot with a rating of 7 out of 10. I have a feeling a lot of y'all are gonna be like, I cannot believe you are rating some of these what you're rating them, because I love them, and that's fine. Sometimes people talk about foundations that I adore and they bash them, and I'm like, you're wrong. But then I'm like, no, you're not, because we all have different skin. We all have different preferences. But this coming in with a 7 out of 10 is the CL Tint and Protect SPF 50 Skin Tint. I have the shade number 5 medium in this. I honestly thought I got light medium. I think I saw in some reviews that they ran light, so I decided to get medium, and it is darker than I expected it to be, so I probably should have gone with my first instinct and gotten light medium. It does have more coverage than you would expect a skin tint to have. It does not have enough, it is not something I would use as my only SPF by any means. If I put as much as I needed to get the SPF 50, I would look horrible. So this is just added SPF for me. I did have to use more of this on my neck and chest to make everything blend in because it's darker than I would have wanted it to be or anticipated it to be based on reviews. It wore off on me. Around my nose, upper lip, and my chin. There's a trend going on, if you can tell. So that is why this got 7 out of 10, because the wear was not perfect on me. The color was part of that, even though that's not the product's fault, that's my fault. But mostly just the wear wasn't what I wanted it to be. Coming in next, also with a 7 out of 10, is the Make Beauty Radiant Skin Tint. This is it right here. It needs to be shaken up. I used this, and when I used it for my demo, it had been a couple months since I had used it. Now, I did get this in January, so I've had it probably the longest of most of these. But y'all, it smelled like it had already turned. I'm talking straight up mildew smell. I was like, am I really going to wear this all day? I didn't have any breakouts from it. If anybody has this product, let me know if you have come across that as well. It's a sheer to light formula. I mean, it's a skin tint, so you would expect that. It does have a very glowy finish, but I did feel like I could manipulate that finish pretty well with powder and get it to where I wanted it to be. It is super skin-like, and it actually did wear very well on me. And I even put in my notes that it would have been an 8 out of 10 if it weren't for the smell. I need my products not to smell after not even having it for 12 months. I know that is the shelf life for some things, but I've never had a foundation smell like this one does at this point. So again, it would be an 8 out of 10 because I do really like that product. It's just the smell knocked it down to a 7. The next is the G Beauty Foundation Stick. I have this in the shade number 8. I typically use this in tandem with the Prime Skin, but I wanted to use these by themselves for the sake of ranking them for this video. And this got a 7 out of 10. It is medium to full coverage. It looks a lot heavier around the nose than some others, and even some other stick foundations that I have. and it wasn't that I applied too much around that area. I blended in from out here, so it wasn't like I applied the product right onto my nose. This is a more natural matte finish. You're not gonna get a ton of luminosity from this, which is fine. That is what a lot of people prefer, but it's definitely more matte than the Dior. And there was nothing wrong necessarily with the wear. I just like it better when I use it on top of the prime skin for a little bit of added coverage versus using it by itself. So for that reason, I gave it a 7 out of 10. The next product also comes in at a 7 out of 10 is the G Beauty Prime Skin. I love this product. But again, I was testing all of these against each other, and this is just where it landed. It is more luminous than my skin, so it did add luminosity on top of my SPF as I applied this. You can build it up a little bit if you want to stipple some more product on top of a first layer, but that is where I like to bring the G Beauty foundation stick in to add a little bit more coverage on top of this, because to me, this wears best when you just put one layer on the skin. It still stayed semi-luminous when I set this with powder, so you're not going to be able to mattify this completely, at least in my experience. And I think because of that, even when set, it did patch off some throughout the day, mostly on my forehead. And I did just feel like I lost a bit of coverage. Like it wasn't super patchy anywhere else on my skin, but I just felt like when I went to bed that night, I looked like I had less coverage on my skin than when I first applied and set this. I do think any skin can wear this. I think it's great under other foundations as a primer, which, I mean, it is prime skin, so it is meant to be used as a primer or by itself. And it would be really good for dry skin. And then the final foundation I'm gonna talk about today is the one that I have on my skin right now. And this one came in at a 7 to 8 out of 10. The reason it is more on the 7 side is more the ingredients than anything else, and that is a personal issue. This is the Prada Skin Optimizing Foundation. I've talked about before, I hate this packaging. It looks unfinished to me. It looks like a refill, in my opinion. I know a lot of y'all like the packaging. To me, I just feel like I'm supposed to stick it down in something else. I don't know why. It's not my thing. But we're talking about the product and not the packaging. This is a little bit more natural matte when applied, and definitely keeps either the same the same finish as whatever SPF I'm wearing, or it will mattify it a bit, in my opinion. I'm wearing a different SPF today than I did in all of these demos, and I just felt like it went on very natural, so much so that if I didn't love powder, I wouldn't feel the need to set this. I had a very dry nose on the day that I used this for the note-taking testing portion, and it wore really well over those areas, over the dry areas. But then over some of the other areas, it kind of patched off a little bit. But again, I feel like having visibly dry skin on this day, it wore really well. Now, I did have in my notes that it applied patchy on my lower chin area, which I do have a spot right here I've talked about in other videos before that some foundations just don't want to stick to. And I do feel like that's the case with this foundation, like I can see it in the viewfinder. There's something about some foundations and that spot that it just doesn't want to adhere to. That is the case for this as well. And one of the reasons it is more on the 7 side than the 8 side is it has ferments in the ingredients, and if I wear this consistently, I will start getting bumps on my skin. Again, personal issue. However, if you have the same issue, it's something to be cognizant of. So I can't use this consistently. It doesn't adhere to that one part of my face. So for those reasons, it got a 7. But other than that, the wear and the finish are really nice. So those are the first 8 foundations of my foundation roundup. I will have them listed and linked per usual. If I forgot a color or anything like that, that will also be down in the description box as well. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be back in a couple of days with my second roundup. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I hope you all go out and have a very blessed day.